Yesterday you said that owning were the first contact, or the person who introduced you. But for example, before owning, what did you know about Chinese independent cinema?
I grew up in Los Angeles, in a small town in Los Angeles called South Pasadena. And they had a very famous old movie theater called the Rialto. And when I was in high school, you can walk to the movie theater. It's by the library in the high school. And I remember when I was 15, I saw maybe my first Chinese movie there, Judo by Zhang Yimou. And I really loved this movie. But also, it was a very shocking movie. Both visually, I'd never seen anything like it, and also the story was much harsher than the stories we see in American movies. So even though my parents are Chinese immigrants, we never watched Chinese movies. So that was the first one I saw. And then when I went to college, I went to UC Berkeley, and I take some Asian American classes. And in one of them, we watched a lot of films like Chungking Express. That film really changed my understanding of cinema, too. And also, watching films by Kieslowski, it started to really open up my understanding of what cinema could be. But I was still very new and just a student and learning. So when I started to become an independent producer, it was coming from a place of political consciousness around narrative. So I wanted to make movies that I wanted to see. So those were mostly movies about women. I wanted to watch movies where the stories were about women. And 25 years ago, there were very few in the US. But when I started to produce, I found my way into the Asian American community. So the first 5 feature films I produced were Asian American films. And I was a big part of trying to bring more Asian American stories to the screen. And one day I was invited to be a part of the opening of the Museum of Chinese in America in New York City. And Maya Lin designed their new building, and they invited me to produce a film exhibition that would open the museum. So part of this, we had a panel about Chinese American identity. And during this panel, someone walked up to me and said, "I have a friend whose film is showing at the Museum of Modern Art, but can you help him find another place to show his film?" And at first I thought, well, if his film is showing at MoMA, why does he need my help, right? But I had just shown one of the Asian American films I produced at NYU APA Center. So I said, this is a great programmer, Alexandra. You can write to her and she might be interested. So a month passes and I receive an email and someone says, "Good news, Alexandra programmed the film and the filmmakers are here. It's Oning and Caofei, and they are going to show a film called Sanyan Li." And I did not know this film. I did not know who the filmmakers were. And so I went to NYU to see the film. And the programmer, Alexandra, she was so excited. And I learned later that these were 2 very important artists, Caofei being a really important video artist in China. So when I saw the film, it really blew me away. I really hadn't seen anything like that. I knew very little about Chinese cinema. And I thought, well, if I know very little about Chinese cinema, most of the US knows nothing then, right? And so my path to Chinese independent cinema really came through Asian American cinema.
Okay, San Yuan Li had several versions The one you saw were 40